There's a lot of conversations happening in Washington. So Sam Liccardo, who's a representative out of California, has introduced basically another tier to the Patriot Act, Patriot Act 2.0. And it has some really pernicious language, particularly around self-custody and wallet use. I believe it goes against best practices where you don't reuse wallets. They want that embedded in there. And now there's really big players that have really big lobbying spends. Not just Coinbase anymore. You got BlackRock. You got, a lot of people that might be pushing.
See, one of the things you have going on right now is there's a lot of social unrest. And there is a lot of chaos. And there is some very angry folks out there. But it's inchoate. It's not organized around the one vector that needs to be organized around, and that is the Bitcoin vector. So it's once all of that energy, and as John Lydon said, anger is an energy, right? And once that energy is focused in the proper way, we will need to be the global insurrection against banker occupation, because we genuinely need to overthrow the global banking system, and Bitcoin is the mechanism by which to do that. So when I see the violence, and when I see the unrest, and when I see the social cohesion risk, as the Economist magazine calls it, I see free-floating energy that will be coalesced into the proper arrow and vector on the path we need to go on. And that's how I see my role, is basically to help point the way, right? I'm not Satoshi. I'm like John the Baptist. I just point the way. I'm pointing the way toward the North Star. That is the mission statement. Never get off the boat. You got to keep going, because for a lot of reasons, a lot of obvious reasons, and a lot of not so obvious reasons. Yeah, I agree. I'm hopeful. I share the same sentiment. I'm also a little bit nervous. These are really good times to jam things through. The aftermath of 9/11, Occupy Wall Street was very fractured in terms of the anger and energy and a lot of really nasty stuff. The one thing you can rely on is that shitcoiners will fuck themselves. No, right? I'm not worried about that anymore. And same thing with the fiat money people, and same thing with all the other enemies of Bitcoin, is that they always tip their hand. They always tell you what they're going to do, and they always hurt themselves, because it's good versus evil. And evil, it doesn't win. And, Bitcoin is on the side of good. And Bitcoin is going to win.
That's relentless optimism. That's my message, because I've seen it happen.
New York.
It's very New York. Yeah, right. The
only thing that's died more times than Bitcoin is New York City.
Right, exactly. We've seen it. We've seen Bitcoin crash and come back, but we've also seen it bring out the best in people, and shift your mindset. Right. Everybody has experienced it at a different pace, which is that, I guess Safdien is the one that really explained this quite well, the time preference. And you have to experience it to understand what it means. And it's a beautiful thing, right? To start to shift your time preference to the future. So you have a lower and lower time preference. And it's extraordinary to see it happen to individuals, to your friends, to communities, to a nation state. And I think we see that with El Salvador. And I've seen the transformation there. I've seen my students at Cuba Plus. I've seen, we've graduated 500 students now. And the transformation in those 500 students that I've been able to watch their, journey to become like a New York asshole, where they are they're the rulers of the world, right? They can do because they could do whatever. Everybody has to think that, right? Like, you have to be able to believe that you can be the king of the world. You can be the number one person.
Bitcoin has a New York attitude.
Yeah,
right?
It does. Well, look at Hal Finney, what was it, in January of 2009, talking about Bitcoin being $1 million, right? Mm-hmm. Because once we take over all global Forex and stuff, and you're like, dude, it's only 2 weeks old and he's already talking about it, taking over everything, right? That's the attitude that has always been there at the base layer of Bitcoin. And that is punk attitude, right? It's totally punk. It's totally punk for Sid Vicious to go up there and think he could sing. But he did. He got up there and kept singing, and people paid to go see him, shouting on the stage. Same with people paid to go see Max and Stacy shouting on the stage. Well, I don't shout, but Max does.